Imagine that one day you leave behind your home, your family, and the world you have always known to embark on a journey from which you may never return. Ahead of you lies a road stretching thousands of kilometers across unfamiliar lands, filled with hunger, thirst, disease, and the constant threat of death. Yet you continue moving forward, because you have been convinced that this is not merely a journey, it is a sacred duty. Nearly 1,000 years ago, thousands of people across Europe answered such a call. Their destination was Jerusalem, and this long and dangerous expedition became known as the First Crusade. The year was 995. Europe was divided into numerous kingdoms, duchies, and territories ruled by nobles and lords. Most people lived in small villages, and their world extended little beyond their local surroundings. Yet far to the east stood Jerusalem, a city of immense importance to Christians. For centuries, pilgrims had traveled there to visit the holy sites associated with the life of Jesus Christ. At the same time, the Byzantine Empire was facing increasing pressure from the Seljuk Turks. After suffering several military defeats, Byzantine Emperor Alexios I appealed to Western Europe for assistance. His request eventually reached Pope Urban II, the highest religious authority in the Christian world. In November 1095, a great church council was held in the French town of Clermont. There, Pope Urban II delivered a speech that would change the course of history. He called upon the Christians of Western Europe to aid their fellow Christians in the East and to reclaim the Holy Land. His words had a profound impact on those who heard them. According to historical accounts, the crowd responded with the cry, "God wills it." Within a short time, thousands of people from across Europe decided to join the expedition. The crusading movement attracted far more than knights and soldiers. Farmers, merchants, priests, and even women and children joined various groups heading eastward. Many believed that participating in the crusade would earn them forgiveness for their sins. Others sought honor, wealth, or new opportunities. Whatever their motivations, they all shared the same destination, Jerusalem. In 1096, the first groups began their journey. Many of these early participants lacked military organization and preparation. As a result, they faced numerous hardships, and many never reached their destination. Later, larger and better organized armies departed under the leadership of powerful nobles and experienced knights. Among the most notable leaders were Godfrey of Bouillon, Raymond of Toulouse, and Bohemond of Tarent. After a long and difficult journey, the Crusaders arrived in Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. This city amazed many of them. Its massive walls, magnificent churches, bustling markets, and sophisticated culture seemed unlike anything they had seen before. Yet the Byzantine emperor did not fully trust the Crusaders. Although he had requested their assistance, he understood that such a large foreign army could one day become a threat to his own empire. Eventually, the Crusaders crossed the Bosphorus and entered Anatolia. Here, the true military campaign began. Their first major objective was the city of Nicaea. After a lengthy siege, the city was captured. This victory boosted the Crusaders' confidence and encouraged them to continue their advance eastward. But greater challenges awaited them. Across the vast and arid landscapes of Anatolia, shortages of food and water became a constant problem. The intense heat exhausted both people and animals. Many fell ill and died along the way. Nevertheless, they pressed forward. At the Battle of Dorylaeum, they faced the forces of the Seljuk Turks in a fierce confrontation. Although the Crusaders initially found themselves in serious danger, they ultimately emerged victorious. The victory opened the road ahead. After months of marching and fighting, the Crusaders reached the important Syrian city of Antioch. Surrounded by enormous walls and formidable defenses, this city presented a daunting challenge. The siege dragged on for months. Food shortages became so severe that many soldiers came close to starvation. Morale began to collapse, and some abandoned the expedition altogether. Yet those who remained refused to give up hope. Finally, in 1099, the Crusaders succeeded in capturing Antioch. But their triumph was short-lived. Soon afterward, a large Muslim army surrounded the city. This time, it was the Crusaders who found themselves trapped. The situation became desperate. Yet through determination and a series of bold actions, they managed to break the siege and retain control of the city. The final chapter of their journey had begun. Years of warfare, disease, and hardship had greatly reduced their numbers. Still, they continued onward. In June 1099, they finally caught sight of Jerusalem in the distance. For many, it was an emotional moment. After years of suffering and sacrifice, the city they had dreamed of was finally before them. Yet Jerusalem would not be taken easily. The city was heavily fortified and well defended. A siege soon began. Once again, the Crusaders faced shortages of food and water. The scorching summer heat made conditions even more difficult. Nevertheless, they constructed siege engines and wooden towers in preparation for a final assault. On July 15, 1099, after weeks of preparation and fierce fighting, the Crusaders succeeded in breaching the city's defenses. Jerusalem fell under their control. This marked the culmination of the First Crusade. Across Europe, the victory was celebrated as a great achievement. For many of the city's inhabitants, however, it was a devastating human tragedy. Historians continue to study and debate the events that followed. The First Crusade was far more than a military expedition. It was a historical event that profoundly shaped Europe, the Middle East, and the wider Mediterranean world. It led to the rise of new political powers, the creation of new connections between regions, and the beginning of conflicts that would endure for generations. Nearly 1,000 years later, the First Crusade remains one of the most studied and discussed chapters of medieval history. The story of thousands of men and women who set out in search of faith, hope, and an uncertain future continues to live on in the pages of history. And that is why the First Crusade is more than simply a war of the past. It is an extraordinary chapter in human history, one that reminds us how far people are willing to travel in pursuit of belief, ambition, and purpose.